everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, checking in with a weekly garden tour. And here I am standing at the rear of my sunny garden with a beautiful Limelight hydrangea in full bloom. This is one of my longtime favorite varieties of hydrangea. And underneath that is what I'm super excited to see, the one and only Seminole Pumpkin that has germinated on its own. And it's actually growing all throughout this area that I had intended on clearing and making a new shade border out of. Decided I'm gonna wait and leave this space for the Seminole Pumpkin to grow up through. But even more fun than that, the Seminole Pumpkin loves to climb. It did last year. It climbed up into my Yoshino cryptomeria. And look here, it's climbing up into the Limelight hydrangea. So there's lots of trees in this border for that pumpkin vine to be able to ultimately just kind of grow up through. And I'm so relieved because that's my favorite squash of all time. And I'm not sure why the seed that I collected and sowed on purpose hasn't germinated. Maybe the fruits weren't ripe. I don't really understand. I'm just so relieved to have not lost it altogether. So I'm really looking forward to giving you updates on that Seminole Pumpkin patch here. Another thing that I'm actually really excited by, another self-sowing element, are these gourds. And this vine isn't looking that great, but it's already set, quite a few really cute fruits. And it's growing up this Neolitsia, which is a really fabulous evergreen tree that I've featured probably in March when it was, flushing out its bronze new growth. But I love the idea of letting cucurbits, things like pumpkins and squash and gourds, just sort of climb up through the trees. They don't do any damage, and actually I think they make everything a whole lot more interesting. And while we're here in this border, you can see some other cucurbits I have yet to identify. I'm not sure what this green leaf one is. That one there, I think because of you see the silver patches, I think this is the Seminole Pumpkin. You see it sort of growing up through. And you can see here, this is exactly that pathway that I've been wanting to extend, and I'm still going to. I'm just gonna wait until after pumpkin season. Now it's just started to rain, which is great, because I haven't watered. I wanted to show you that I got this pathway done. I just posted a video on this the other day, and my grit place will be open tomorrow, so I'm gonna get one more load, then I'll be done with that. This border that I sowed 2 weeks ago, you can see in there the smaller ones. Let me get up close. So that is sesame, and there's a lot of buckwheat. This is the buckwheat, and you can see it's kind of everywhere. I was really heavy-handed, obviously. Now I come up to the front here, be able to show you a few other things that I sowed. So we have Goldilocks Squash. I know it's late, but I think this will give me harvest, into the fall. And then a border of peanuts along the front, which that's what these are. Those germinated really fast at this time of year. Now look, rabbits are eating them. They're selective, but they're starting to nibble. So this evening, actually, I think we have rain in the forecast for the next few days, but soon I'll be spraying I Must Garden rabbit repellent. And I also have deer that have been nibbling on things as well. Hey, it's an endless process. People always ask for the easy solution. There is no such thing as an easy solution to animals. It's an ongoing experience. Once you acknowledge that, you'll be less annoyed by it. Now, I have bad news to share. One of my grafted tomatoes died from wilt as well. And the tomatoes on this haven't been very good. They've been really thick-skinned and kind of gross. You know, lots of weird blemishes and stuff. So you can see it's totally dead. I need to pull that out. I'm gonna get a bunch of garden work done as soon as I finish this tour. I wanted to not look as I normally do after I've been in the garden for a while on a humid day. And the gladiolus, zinnia, I don't love this color combination, but you know, whatever. The gladiolus will be done blooming soon. I brought in a whole bunch of these for a flower arrangement in my dining room, and I actually used these pink ones for flower arrangements for my friend's wedding anniversary party that we went to earlier this week. And you can see some of the sunflowers have started. So obviously this was a border I got planted significantly earlier in the season. I'm glad at least I have one spot of the yard that looks like proper summer. And this is on the other side of the fence, so my neighbors get to enjoy it. And actually, you can see this all the way from the main street out there. So I hope it brings some joy to all the random people who pass by. So we make our way up here. Obviously, I never did come in and really deal with this, so I have an actual forest of castor beans, but I think they look pretty cool. And then coming into the perennial peninsula, this is an incredibly dry spot, and I guess the main culprits are this townhouse, crepe myrtle, and then that water oak right over there. So I basically have been having to irrigate this on a near daily basis, and you can see things like agastache that I planted are really suffering, and that's because it's like the soil here is almost hydrophobic, and I don't really know how to fix it. I thought agastaches and stuff would be good, but I think they have to get established before they're drought tolerant, and they're not well established. Here's Sophia coming to say hi. And Cubby's over there under the Prius, and the kitten's actually inside, totally passed out. So obviously the driveway bed, these planters look great. I'm not sure what's causing this tomato to have this leaf curl. You see that? And you see the purple? I'm gonna give this a dose of fertilizer. You know, doggone tomatoes. I counted. I actually still have 100 tomato plants growing, but the productivity is so low, and I absolutely am going to have to buy tomatoes for the tomato tasting, and it just drives me completely bonkers. It makes me so mad. The rice looks nice. Wishing I had planted more. And this side of the wall is doing great, but the other side's growing pretty well. I did have to replace that dahlia that was in here. It got a disease and wilted away and turned black. So I just replaced it with a coleus and a mint that was in a pot. And this one, this cream sausage tomatoes are finally starting to get harvested, and it's my favorite tomato. It's so sweet and delicious, and I'm gonna make some tomato sauce tonight. And this south side of the house border, I really love it. I think that one squash right there looks so cool. That texture is so dynamic and interesting. It's like when people think about the aesthetics of foodscaping, this sort of sums it up. Like, there's not a ton of food in here. You know, there's just a couple things. There's, you know, a strawberry, a squash, and a handful of tomatoes planted in the back. But you know what? For a lot of people, that's enough. You don't have to grow 100 tomato plants. And if you only have a small area, why not mix some vegetables and ornamentals together? It gives you a really high impact look that I think is really quite pretty. Same thing with this space over here. You know, this is an area where I have 3 different varieties of blueberries planted, and then in and among that, you know, things like coneflower and Echinacea. But then I've got some eggplant and peppers, you know, next to snapdragons and coleus. So you can be really creative when you pair food crops with your ornamentals. And the nice thing is it changes every season, because none of these annual vegetables are here to stay. You know, they're just for a few months. Now be wary of these lilies. I keep bumping into this one because, see, the hose is right there, but the pollen will stain your skin. And if you get it wet, it actually stains it even more. So you need to, you know, wipe it off with a dry paper towel. But if you're sweaty, like I am pretty much all the time when I'm outside, it immediately stains your skin. Across here, I'm sad but not shocked to report that these tomatoes are slowly dying of southern wilt because they are planted in the ground. And just because I have to keep proving to myself that my soil is full of poison. So, you know, I had those sun gold here, which I've already dyed and been taken out. So here's that, I think this was chocolate chestnut. So, yeah, I just can't grow tomatoes in the ground. Apparently, I can't even grow grafted tomatoes in the ground. It's very frustrating. I really need to get over my thing with tomatoes. Now I can grow tomatoes in pots, and specifically in grow bags and in soil cube, 1 cubic foot bags. And you can see here is a cream sausage that is ripe. So the main way that you can tell when these like non-red varieties, they're soft, you know, they're squeezy. Whereas, you know, like look here, obviously it's much whiter, but it's also like super hard. It doesn't have the texture of a ripe tomato. So that's the easiest way to be able to tell when your non-red tomatoes are ripe. Now I have been dealing with so much blossom end rot, and I've seen a lot of other people talking about it, and you know, blossom end rot, there it is. You're better not to even have the plant waste its energy trying to grow these out. Just take them off. That's caused from inconsistent moisture, which honestly this year I think is more related to excessive rain, not me letting these things dry out, because I really haven't let these dry out. So I'm not gonna blame myself this time. Sometimes tomatoes are just not a great outdoor crop. Like this is why so many tomatoes at the grocery store are grown, you know, in greenhouses. They're grown hydroponically. There's just a lot of reasons for it. It's because tomatoes are just vectors for every single problem. So I'm gonna try and like not blame myself for absolutely everything, especially things that I don't have any control over, like water falling from the sky. Now I see another ripe cream sausage, so I'm gonna go ahead and harvest that. See, they're quite yellow. I mean, you see why it's called cream sausage. It's like a cream color, and it's sort of the shape of a sausage. The name is quite literal, but not in a gross way. My favorite Echinacea, Pretty Parasol, you know, this was blooming in a huge way about 2 months ago. But look, it's flushing out new growth, and it's gonna put out a whole new display of flowers. So I'm really, really pleased and impressed with this plant. Yeah, everybody needs this. Pretty Parasols Echinacea. And look, I mean, even with just a few flowers right now, it's still covered up in pollinators, all kinds of different bugs. Just to show you, it was a really good workout. Here's my empty trailer. There's all the Chapel Hill grit. It always feels like an accomplishment when you have an empty trailer. Knowing I have to still put out another trailer load here, and I'm actually gonna relocate all of this. I'm gonna grit the entire thing, and I've been trying to come up with a more ornamental way to display these. The key here is they can't go on the ground because then nematodes will get up in them. So I have to keep them on pallets. So I do want this to look pretty. You know, that is my goal. So if anybody has any ideas, put them in the comments. overall, because we've had a substantial amount of rain, like the grass is super green. And you can see, like, we don't have a perfect stand of grass. If it's green, it can be mowed. That's what we call grass in my house. And from where that tree was taken out, you can see already, because this gets now, the woodland edge gets full sun until about 2 p.m. on sunny days. Today we're really nice and cloudy. But there's already green growing here, and it's amazing how with better light, it's drying out a lot better. You know, in years past, this stayed as a swamp, especially through the winter. We couldn't get the car out of the garage. So I'm pretty pleased. As sad as I was to have that tree taken out, now I just feel so motivated. I'm not motivated to work in the woods right now because there's lots of snakes. This is like totally where copperheads live. I don't need to disturb copperheads. This is something I can deal with in the winter time. You gotta choose your battles, you know. No need to not face the reality that there are insects and animals that I cohabitate with on this property, some of whom I don't want to actually interact with. I'm irrationally excited about that corn. That's Bloody Butcher. It's not a fresh eating variety, so I'm leaving the cobs on the plant so that they will dry, because this is actually grown for the purpose of grits. I love grits. But look, there's a whole bunch. I mean, even though I don't have a lot of plants, they have done so well. These are in these 100-gallon root pouches filled with soil cube compost. And though I've always had success growing corn here, I've never had corn that looks quite like this. So I think that's a magic solution. And you know, my cucumbers are starting to look a little ratty, but I'm still getting a ton of cucumbers. And yesterday I discovered that I missed a bunch and they were like really overripe. So I'm gonna let these actually further ripen and use these for seed. So if you ever wanna save your own cucumber seeds, actually big, like almost orange ones are the ones that have the ripest seed inside of them. So it's not all lost. And I did harvest a whole bunch yesterday. I have to make pickles. I'm gonna make more gazpacho today. It's just, there's a lot when there's a lot of vegetables coming on. There's a lot to do in the kitchen. And yesterday, you probably have never noticed, but last year we stained the fence, but I only got to like that panel and then I ran out of stain. I found an extra gallon of it and I finished staining the fence yesterday. So now when I take pictures of this beautiful Froggie hydrangea from Dr. Durr, it has a proper background. I know I'm like literally the only person who cares, but I don't know. I love staining, not like to the point where I would want to do it as a job, but you know, I just love the instant gratification of it. Now I did not get out a ladder, so don't look up. But that's okay. I'm gonna do the upper stuff when I'm not home alone, and because I don't want to fall off of a ladder and not have any ability to like get help. And I'm gonna do it in the winter when, first of all, it's cooler and all of the leaves aren't out, because a large portion of this fence actually has, you know, branches coming over it, and so it's just easier to do in the cool season. And I can tell you, it is not the cool season right now. Though I'm not doing anything physical, I'm just walking around with the phone, I am sweating like a piglet. Oh, look, you guys, more wilt. It's so disappointing. It's how it starts. Hopefully it's just that one plant, because I've actually got a really healthy tomato here. Yeah, I have got to get over tomatoes. Good grief. I am happy to say I have figs for the first time in a decade forming on these branches, and it's only July, so that means I have some hope that I will actually have ripe figs for the first time ever. And just to prove to you that my mowing strategy did not kill anything, frankly, Look at how great the asparagus is. Look at all that self-sown arugula. That's the benefit of really letting your plants die and go to seed, mowing it all in place. And then, you know, the other things I've planted, the tithonia, the sweet potatoes, all of the sunflowers are starting to germinate up through. I think this border is going to look awesome. It's probably not gonna be in full flower for the tomato tasting on August 7th, but I do think it's gonna look good this fall when I have my open garden on Saturday, October 9th. And you can see these tomatoes that we potted not quite 2 weeks ago are really starting to grow and get green. I need to, you know, put up some sort of wire just to hold them in place and keep them upright. I'm pleased about this. This is what I'm banking on for my late season tomato crop, because so far I only have enough tomatoes to like make a meal from. I'm not canning anything right now because I don't have enough. And that is very unusual and quite annoying, to be honest. This bed is looking full and lush, and I'm hoping I'm gonna get some squash soon. I'm like the only person that hasn't had any. There's a teeny tiny one. You can see these peanuts have done really well. The sorghum is already starting to flower, so we'll have seeds soon. And these potted tomatoes are really starting to take off. I'm gonna fertilize everything today. So unfortunate that the planted tomatoes died, but at least I can compensate with pots. And boy, now that the sun's starting to break through, I might have to sit in the pool for a few minutes because it's hot. Holy smokes. I know I've said this before, but people always ask. Yes, the pool is chlorinated. It is treated just like a pool, even though it's not a real pool. It's a feed tank from Tractor Supply. And yeah, it had these holes in it, so it made it really easy to retrofit it with a filter and a pump, both of which came from Amazon. We've had this now 5 years, and it's awesome, and it stays filled year round, and we vacuum it just like you would a normal pool with just a thing that attaches to a hose. If you want a pool, but you don't want to actually have the expense of a pool, I highly recommend a feed tank. The blueberries are abundant. I need to come out today and harvest more and start preserving blueberries. We've been eating them nonstop. I mean, it's basically dessert all day long. But this is my favorite variety, powder blue. It never fails me. And the birds are only now discovering it. I have plenty of blueberries to share with birds. I do not mind. I don't have so many birds that they ever wipe it out, so I think we can peacefully coexist. And all of these succulent pots are doing really well. It's amazing to me how much water succulents can take in the summertime. I store all of these in the heated shed through the winter and don't give them any water at all. And I've had a lot of these for many years. But now I'm seeing more wilt. I'm so disappointed. Gosh. Tomatoes just continuously break my heart. There you have it. That's the start. Won't be totally dead for probably about a week. Well, you win some, you lose some. When you grow tomatoes, you often lose a lot. The Phlox Bright Eyes has been a pollinator magnet. I'm glad I left some of these untrimmed because it's been nice to have butterflies, but soon all the ones that I cut back about a month ago are going to start flowering. So it's going to be beautiful for a long time. Coming along over here. I'm worried a bit about this lilac because you see how the leaves are like curling over. It might just be dry because it is right here at the base of this cryptomeria. I don't know. Probably need to do some supplemental irrigating because this area does look very dry. Coming along the north side. Oh, what a treat. It's a swallowtail on this Hydrangea paniculata. This is called, I think this is called Green Cascade. I got it from the Ralston Arboretum, and it's wild and big, and I do a lot of pruning on it, but what's so great about it is this one actually has sterile and non-sterile flowers. So you see, the sterile are the things that everybody thinks are so pretty. These are actually bracts. And then the real flowers are these teeny tiny, which none of these are actually open. Here we go. Here's some open ones. I can get it to focus. There we go. See those? So that's what actually benefits pollinators. So I'll show you some other Hydrangea paniculatas that are totally sterile, and you'll notice they don't have much pollinator activity because there's no pollen for them to gather. Now, speaking of pollinators and activity, this stand of Echinacea will not disappoint. It's just covered in bees. It just keeps on looking so good. I'm so happy. You guys, look! Look! It's a lycoris that I didn't know I had. Oh, that's exciting. I don't see any other signs of any others. I've been planting lycoris for 10 years. That's the first time this one's ever bloomed. How cool. All right, so now sterile hydrangeas, and I love this variety. I love these, just like I started off with Limelight, but you see, there's no pollinator activity because there's no nectar. In contrast, here's another swallowtail on a phlox, absolutely loving its life. I frequently chase swallowtails. It's like a hobby. Look at that. It's like, oh, it's filled with bees. There's no room for me. I see more swallowtails out there on that phlox. Let's go check it out. There have been years where I stood out here and there were like 15 or 20 butterflies at a time on this stand of phlox. So hopefully that'll happen. It has been, like, I've noticed there are fewer than usual, and I've been going through my pictures and I'm not sure what the cause is. Maybe it's just still a little early, or this year is just a little different. But I sure do love to watch butterflies. I think they're magnificent. And it's important to grow plants that they've co-evolved with, including this native phlox paniculata, even though sometimes I curse it because it's a spreading beast. When you plant it in the right place, like in this corner, it makes it so I don't have to mulch. It eliminates any weed pressure. And then, of course, in the summer, it does this. Just quite exquisite. Maybe hard to see, but I have so many dragonflies this year, and I really love them. They're so pretty. I can't get that to focus better. There you go. And this corner, more phlox, and then that tiger-eyed sumac, which you can see over here is already starting to do its fall color. That is spreading everywhere, but I've gotten over it. It's fine. I want this bed to have things that fill in and make it so I don't have to constantly mulch. And you can see the pycnanthemum that I planted isn't as tall as it should be, but that's because it's just so shady. So it's all right. I can always divide some later and put it in a more sunny spot. Out here, I'm letting this round of buckwheat self-sow. And here's some more of that pycnanthemum. It's kind of woven in. Between the crepe myrtle and the phlox, this bed is just really beautiful and colorful. There's tons of activity out here. I saw a picture yesterday of my house, I guess from Google, and it was maybe like right after this live oak had been planted, and the border is so short you can see the whole house, like nothing is covered. It's amazing how a garden can change. Now, I was talking about the Seminole pumpkins not germinating for me, and that's very disappointing, but other things are growing in here, so I'm all right. It's, you know, it's all good. I've got the zucchinis coming, and actually, you know what, you guys? Is that Seminole pumpkin? That might be Seminole pumpkin. Oh, that would make all my dreams come true. But you see how dry this border is. Like, look at these poor sweet potatoes that I put in. I'm gonna have to turn the sprinkler on out here. Maybe that'll make it rain. I don't know. These might not be Seminole pumpkin. I think these are zucchini. I thought I did the Seminole pumpkin more like in the very middle, kind of like where that sunflower is growing. And I don't see anything germinating that looks pumpkinish in the middle of this bed. It's all, I think this is all zucchini. Some other things that have self-sown, that is amaranth. And here is sesame, which has been here for years. So I'm really glad that sesame is growing. And of course, tomatillo. Though honestly, I don't know if this is tomatillo or ground cherry. They have been very reliable self-sowers. Here's one on this edge that already has quite a few fruit. See those dangling? I do love that this bed is pretty consistent in that it has a pretty good seed bank in it. So even when I don't do a heavy sowing, things still grow. You guys, look. Rabbits. Rabbit damage. I know I know. I have a million rabbits. Everybody does. But they love sweet potatoes. So I've got to put out some spray. So here in the front, that self-sown zinnia has done so well. And I sit on the couch. I've been sitting on the couch way too much. And I see butterflies and bees, and it's so happy. And these eucomis are doing really nicely. You see, compared to a week ago, their flowers have opened considerably. And that sweet potato, that's also Treasure Island, is doing really well. Doing exactly what I wanted it to do, being a ground cover. Now this foundation bed, it's still not looking as good as I would like for it to, but I'm gonna give it another week before I do anything rash. A lot of things, they're starting to bulk up. It's only been planted 3 weeks. So I have a lot of nutsedge coming in and still lots of barley. Unintentional barley. But I have faith that these plants are gonna just sort of erupt. Just not holding my breath for it. Without question, this is my favorite corner of the yard. And you know, this crinum from my friend Jenks Farmer has been blooming for months. It keeps on putting out buds. And all of this carex is filled in so perfectly. Look how big that Edgeworthy has gotten. That was one that I bought from Camellia Forest back in March as a 1 gallon. It's like doubled in size. I got that rose planted. That's the 4 roses bourbon rose. And then this planter, which has just a ton of tomatoes, and look at all those strawberries. It's like, I don't know, July 19th, and this is still putting out strawberries. Like, at some point, I'm just so amazed. I'm so amazed. Again, Snowy Belle. Oh my gosh. I would say for 2021, Snowy Belle is the plant I am most impressed by. And here to my very flourishing mint patch. And these container tomatoes are doing well. This is Gin Fizz that my friend brought me. And I've harvested only a few fruits, but I'm encouraged to see, you know, that they're flowering, and hopefully we'll get more because they're quite delicious. It's a nice kind of sweet, juicy flavor. And here, these crescent pots are awesome. Like, I wish I had 50 of them. And you see how many tomatoes are coming off of this plant that's in that crescent container. So, you know, these are aroma type. This is San Marzano. I've been harvesting quite a few, and I'm really encouraged to see so many here. So I'm happy to see no wilt in these pots. I hope you've enjoyed today's tour. You can't tell, I'm like melting in this very high humidity weather that we're experiencing, which is perfectly normal in the middle of July in central North Carolina. But I look forward to giving you another garden tour update next Sunday, and I am wishing you all the best for this week ahead. Take care, everybody, and thanks for watching.